Sarah Martinez had always found peace in routine. Every Sunday evening, after the base grew quiet and most soldiers retreated to their quarters, she would spread her cleaning kit across the small table in the armory. The .338 Lapua Magnum rifle lay before her like a sacred instrument, its dark metal surface reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights overhead. She had been doing this for 3 years now, ever since she first arrived at Forward Operating Base Titan in Afghanistan. The ritual never changed. First, she would field strip the weapon with practiced precision, her fingers moving automatically through motions that had become second nature. Each component was inspected, cleaned, and reassembled with the kind of attention most people reserved for precious family heirlooms. Tonight was different, though. As Sarah worked the cleaning rod through the barrel, her mind wandered to the mission she had completed just 2 days earlier. The target had been a high-value insurgent leader who had been planning attacks on supply convoys. Through her scope, at a distance of nearly 800 meters, she had watched him for 20 minutes before taking the shot. One squeeze of the trigger, and another threat to her fellow soldiers was eliminated. The weight of what she did for a living never fully left her shoulders, but moments like these, quiet, methodical, focused, helped her process it all. The rifle was more than just a tool, it was her partner, her lifeline, and the instrument through which she protected the lives of countless others. Sarah had grown up in rural Montana, where her father taught her to hunt from the age of 12. She remembered the first time she held a rifle, how heavy it felt in her small hands, how her father patiently showed her proper stance and breathing techniques. Shooting isn't about pulling a trigger, he had told her. It's about becoming one with the weapon, understanding wind, distance, and timing. Those lessons served her well when she enlisted in the Army at 19. During basic training, her marksmanship scores were so exceptional that her drill sergeants immediately flagged her for sniper school. The transition from hunting deer in the Montana wilderness to engaging enemy combatants in desert warfare was jarring, but Sarah adapted with remarkable skill. Her first deployment had been to Iraq, where she spent 14 months providing overwatch for infantry patrols and conducting reconnaissance missions. It was there that she earned her first confirmed kill, a moment that would forever change how she viewed her role in the military. The enemy sniper had been picking off soldiers from her unit for weeks, and Sarah had spent 3 days tracking his movements before finally getting a clear shot. Now, in Afghanistan, she was on her second deployment and had become one of the most effective snipers in her battalion. Her kill count was something she didn't discuss openly, but the other soldiers knew her reputation. When Sarah was providing overwatch, everyone felt a little bit safer. As she continued cleaning her rifle, Sarah reflected on how much she had changed since that scared 19-year-old girl who first stepped off the bus at basic training. The military had taught her discipline, precision, and the heavy responsibility that came with being entrusted with such deadly capability. Every shot she took was calculated, every target verified multiple times before engagement. The armory door creaked open behind her, but Sarah didn't look up from her work. She assumed it was one of the other soldiers coming to clean their weapon or retrieve equipment. The footsteps were measured and deliberate, suggesting someone trying not to disturb her concentration. "Evening, Specialist Martinez," came a voice she didn't immediately recognize. Sarah looked up to see a man in his 50s wearing the uniform of a visiting general. She quickly stood and snapped to attention, her cleaning rag still in her hand. "At ease, soldier," the general said with a slight smile. "I didn't mean to interrupt your work. I was just making my rounds and noticed someone still here this late." "Just maintaining my equipment, sir," Sarah replied, relaxing slightly but maintaining proper military bearing. The general's eyes moved to the disassembled rifle on the table, taking in the meticulous organization of her cleaning supplies and the obvious care with which she treated her weapon. "That's a beautiful rifle," he commented. "The .338 Lapua Magnum is quite a piece of equipment." "Yes, sir." "She's been reliable," Sarah answered, unconsciously referring to her rifle in feminine terms as many snipers did. "How long have you been working with this particular weapon?" 3 years, sir. "Since I arrived at this base." The general nodded thoughtfully, his experienced eyes noting details that most people would miss. The wear patterns on the rifle suggested heavy use, but the immaculate condition spoke to exceptional care and maintenance. The way Sarah handled the components showed the kind of familiarity that only came from countless hours of practice and real-world application. "Your commanding officer speaks very highly of your work, Specialist," the general said, moving closer to examine the rifle more carefully. Sarah felt a flutter of pride mixed with nervousness. Having a general take personal interest in her work was both an honor and somewhat intimidating. She wondered what her CO had told him and whether this was a routine inspection or something more significant. "Thank you, sir. I try to do my job to the best of my ability." The general picked up one of Sarah's shooting logs from the table, a detailed record that every sniper was required to maintain. It documented weather conditions, distances, ammunition used, and results for every shot fired in training and combat situations. As his eyes scanned the pages, his expression began to change. "These are quite detailed records," he observed, flipping through several pages. "Yes, sir. Accurate record-keeping is essential for maintaining effectiveness and identifying areas for improvement." What the general was reading, though, was far more than just routine documentation. The entries painted a picture of a sniper who had been consistently engaged in high-level operations, taking shots that many snipers would consider extremely challenging. The distances recorded were impressive, often exceeding 800 meters, and the success rate was remarkable. As he continued reading, the general's eyebrows raised slightly. The frequency of entries suggested that Sarah had been very busy, and the nature of the targets indicated that she was being assigned some of the most critical missions in the area of operations. Sarah continued her cleaning, trying to focus on her work while being acutely aware of the general's presence and his intense study of her records. She had always been proud of her documentation, knowing that detailed logs were crucial for both operational improvement and accountability. The silence stretched for several minutes as the general absorbed the information in front of him. Sarah began to wonder if she had done something wrong or if there was an issue with her record-keeping that she hadn't noticed. Finally, the general looked up from the logbook, his eyes meeting Sarah's with a new intensity. There was something in his expression that hadn't been there before, a mixture of respect, amazement, and perhaps a touch of disbelief. "Specialist Martinez," he said slowly, "I think we need to have a more detailed conversation about your service record." General Robert Hayes had served in the military for over 30 years. He had commanded troops in every major conflict since the Gulf War, witnessed extraordinary acts of courage, and encountered soldiers whose skills seemed to defy explanation. But, as he sat across from Specialist Sarah Martinez in the base commander's office the next morning, he found himself questioning what he was reading in her complete service file. The colonel who commanded the base, James Richardson, had pulled Sarah's full records overnight at the general's request. What they revealed was a picture of operational effectiveness that bordered on the extraordinary. Over her 3-year deployment, Sarah had been credited with 147 confirmed kills, a number that placed her among the most effective snipers in modern military history. "Specialist, your record indicates an unusual level of operational activity," General Hayes began, his tone carefully neutral. "Can you walk me through your typical mission profile here?" Sarah sat stiffly in her chair, still uncertain why a general was taking such personal interest in her service record. "Sir, I typically provide overwatch for patrol operations, conduct reconnaissance missions, and eliminate high-value targets as directed by command." Colonel Richardson leaned forward. "What the general is getting at, Sarah, is that your kill count is significantly higher than we typically see, even from our most experienced snipers." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah felt her stomach tighten as she realized the direction this conversation was heading. She had always been focused on completing her missions successfully, she had never stepped back to consider how her numbers compared to others. "I'm not sure I understand, sir," she replied carefully. General Hayes opened her file and began reading statistics that made the room feel smaller. "In your first year here, you were credited with 38 confirmed kills. Your second year, 52. This year alone, you're approaching 60. The average for a sniper with your experience level over a 3-year period would be somewhere in the range of 20 to 40 total." Sarah absorbed this information with growing unease. She had never thought of her work in terms of numbers or comparisons. Each mission was simply a task to be completed, a responsibility to protect her fellow soldiers and eliminate threats to their safety. Every engagement I've been involved in was authorized through proper channels, she said, her voice steady despite her internal turmoil. That's not in question, Colonel Richardson assured her. Every one of your missions is well documented and justified. What we're trying to understand is how you've been so consistently effective. General Hayes had spent the morning reviewing not just Sarah's kill count, but the circumstances of each engagement. What he found was a pattern of precision and tactical excellence that suggested either exceptional luck or extraordinary skill. The distances of her successful shots averaged nearly 700 meters, well above the norm for combat snipers. Her success rate was over 95%, meaning that when she took a shot, the target was almost certainly eliminated. Tell me about your training background, the general requested. Sarah recounted her childhood in Montana, her father's hunting lessons, her exceptional performance in basic training and sniper school. As she spoke, General Hayes began to understand that he was dealing with someone who possessed a rare combination of natural talent and intensive training. During sniper school, what were your test scores? He asked. I graduated first in my class, sir. The instructors said my scores were some of the highest they had recorded. This revelation prompted General Hayes to make a phone call to the Army Sniper School at Fort Benning. The conversation that followed confirmed what he was beginning to suspect. Sarah's instructors remembered her vividly. Her marksmanship scores had indeed been record-breaking, and her tactical understanding was described as intuitive and exceptional. But exceptional training scores were one thing, consistent operational success in combat was another entirely. The general began to delve deeper into the specific circumstances of Sarah's missions. Walk me through your most recent engagement, he requested. Sarah described the mission from 2 days earlier, the one she had been thinking about while cleaning her rifle. She explained how she had studied the target's patterns for 3 days, identified his routine, calculated wind patterns and elevation adjustments, and waited for the optimal moment to take the shot. The distance was approximately 780 meters, she concluded. Single shot, confirmed kill. General Hayes exchanged a look with Colonel Richardson. A shot at that distance, under combat conditions, required skills that most snipers would consider extraordinary. For Sarah, it seemed to be routine. How do you prepare for shots at extreme range? The general asked. I spend a lot of time studying ballistics, sir. Weather conditions, wind patterns, elevation changes. I also practice regularly at various distances to maintain my skills. What Sarah didn't mention, because she considered it standard practice, was that she often spent hours lying motionless in position, waiting for the perfect shot. Her patience was legendary among her fellow soldiers, some of whom had observed her maintaining a firing position for up to 8 hours without moving. The general began to understand that Sarah's effectiveness wasn't just about natural talent or training. She possessed a combination of technical knowledge, physical discipline, and mental fortitude that created a nearly perfect sniper. Her attention to detail was obsessive, her preparation meticulous, and her execution flawless. Specialist, are you aware that your kill count exceeds that of some of the most famous snipers in military history? General Hayes asked directly. Sarah blinked in surprise. No, sir. I wasn't aware of that comparison. The general opened a reference book he had brought with him. Carlos Hathcock, one of the most celebrated snipers in Marine Corps history, had 93 confirmed kills over his entire career. Chris Kyle, the Navy SEAL sniper, had 160 confirmed kills over 4 deployments. The implications of these comparisons began to sink in. Sarah realized that she was being compared to legendary figures in military history, snipers whose stories had become the stuff of legend. I've just been doing my job, sir, she said quietly. Yes, but you've been doing it at a level that very few people in history have achieved, General Hayes replied. The question now is what we do with that information. Colonel Richardson had been quietly listening to the conversation, but now he spoke up. General, if I may, Sarah has been an exemplary soldier in every respect. Her conduct has been professional, her mission execution flawless, and her integration with her unit outstanding. The general nodded. That's clear from her record. But a sniper with this level of effectiveness represents a significant strategic asset. We need to consider how best to utilize her skills. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The conversation was beginning to sound like her future was being decided without her input, that her exceptional performance might lead to changes she wasn't prepared for. "What kind of changes are you considering, sir?" she asked. General Hayes paused before answering. "There are special operations units that could benefit from someone with your capabilities. There are also training opportunities that could help develop your skills even further. But, first, we need to verify these numbers independently." The general explained that he was ordering a comprehensive review of Sarah's service record, including interviews with soldiers who had served alongside her and verification of her documented engagements. It wasn't that he doubted her records, but numbers this exceptional required thorough confirmation. Over the next week, investigators interviewed dozens of soldiers who had served with Sarah. The picture that emerged was consistent. She was described as quiet, professional, and devastatingly effective. Soldiers who had been on patrols with her Overwatch spoke of feeling completely secure, knowing that any threats would be eliminated before they could act. One soldier described watching Sarah take a shot at what appeared to be an impossible angle and distance, only to see the target drop immediately. Another recounted how Sarah had single-handedly eliminated an entire enemy sniper team that had been terrorizing a nearby village. The more the general learned, the more he realized he was dealing with someone truly exceptional. Sarah Martinez wasn't just a good sniper, she was operating at a level that redefined what was possible in her field. As the investigation concluded, General Hayes faced a decision that would change Sarah's life forever. Her skills were too valuable to waste on routine assignments, but recognizing her abilities would also thrust her into a world of higher-stakes missions and greater scrutiny. The question was whether she was ready for what came next. The secure conference room at Forward Operating Base Titan had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. General Hayes sat at the head of the table, flanked by Colonel Richardson and two officers Sarah didn't recognize. Their uniforms bore the insignia of Special Operations Commands, and their presence suggested that this conversation would determine her future in ways she was only beginning to understand. Sarah entered the room with the same calm precision she brought to every aspect of her military service, but, inside, her mind was racing. The investigation into her service record had been thorough and, according to Colonel Richardson, conclusive. Every confirmed kill had been verified, every mission documented and cross-referenced. The numbers that had initially seemed too high to believe were not only accurate but, if anything, conservative. "Specialist Martinez," General Hayes began, "I want to start by saying that the review of your service record has been completed, and the results are remarkable. Your operational effectiveness exceeds anything we have on record for a sniper with your level of experience." One of the special operations officers, a lieutenant colonel named Susan Torres, leaned forward. "What we're dealing with here is someone whose natural abilities and training have created a level of capability that represents a significant strategic asset." Sarah felt the weight of their attention and the implications of their words. Being called a strategic asset sounded both like an honor and a burden. "The question we need to address," General Hayes continued, "is how the Army can best utilize your skills while also recognizing your exceptional service." Colonel Torres opened a folder and began reading from a document. "Based on your confirmed kill count, mission success rate, and the strategic impact of your operations, you are being recommended for several commendations, including the Bronze Star Medal and the Army Commendation Medal with Valor Device." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had never served for recognition or medals. Her motivation had always been protecting her fellow soldiers and completing her missions successfully. The idea that her work was being evaluated for such high-level commendations was overwhelming. Additionally, the second Special Operations Officer added, "There are several career opportunities that would allow you to continue developing your capabilities at the highest levels." Sarah found her voice. "What kind of opportunities, sir?" General Hayes exchanged glances with the other officers before responding. "The Special Operations Command has expressed interest in bringing you into their sniper program. Additionally, there's a position available as an instructor at the Army Sniper School, where your experience could be used to train the next generation of snipers." The room fell silent as Sarah processed these options. Both represented significant changes from her current assignment and, would require her to make decisions about the direction of her military career. There's also a third option, Colonel Torres said quietly. Delta Force has a position available for someone with your specific skill set. Sarah knew enough about special operations to understand the significance of what was being offered. Delta Force represented the pinnacle of military special operations, conducting missions that were so classified that most soldiers never learned the details of their work. Each of these opportunities comes with different responsibilities and challenges, General Hayes explained. The choice is ultimately yours, but you should understand that your current level of effectiveness has brought you to the attention of the highest levels of military command. Sarah asked for time to consider her options, and the meeting was adjourned with the understanding that she would provide her answer within a week. As the officers filed out, Colonel Richardson remained behind. Sarah, he said, using her first name for the first time in their professional relationship, I want you to know that whatever you decide, you've already accomplished something extraordinary. The impact you've had on operations here has been immeasurable. Over the following days, Sarah found herself grappling with decisions she had never anticipated making. Her exceptional performance had opened doors she didn't know existed, but each opportunity came with trade-offs and consequences. The instructor position at sniper school appealed to her desire to share knowledge and help develop other soldiers' capabilities. Teaching the skills she had mastered could multiply her impact exponentially, potentially saving countless lives through improved training. Special Operations Command offered the chance to work on high-level missions with the best-trained soldiers in the military. The work would be challenging and important, but it would also involve greater personal risk and extended deployments. Delta Force represented the ultimate recognition of her abilities, but it also meant entering a world of complete secrecy and extreme danger. The missions would be critical to national security, but the personal cost could be enormous. As Sarah considered these options, she also reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that Sunday evening when General Hayes first discovered her cleaning her rifle. The quiet, routine maintenance session had set in motion a series of events that revealed the true extent of her capabilities and forced her to confront the exceptional nature of her service. She thought about her family back in Montana, who knew she was deployed but had no idea of the specifics of her work. Her father would be proud of her achievements, but he would also worry about the increased dangers that came with higher profile assignments. Sarah also considered her fellow soldiers at the base. Her presence had provided them with a level of security that they might not fully appreciate until she was gone. The responsibility she felt toward them weighed heavily in her decision-making process. 3 days before her deadline, Sarah received a letter that would influence her final decision. It came from a soldier who had been injured during a patrol mission 6 months earlier. He wrote to thank her for the overwatch she had provided during the evacuation of his wounded squad. Her precision shooting had eliminated 3 insurgents who were attempting to attack the evacuation helicopter, potentially saving multiple lives. The letter reminded Sarah why she had originally chosen to serve and what had driven her to excel in her role as a sniper. Her primary motivation had always been protecting others, and that fundamental purpose hadn't changed despite the recognition and opportunity she now faced. As the week progressed, Sarah found herself spending more time than usual maintaining her rifle and reflecting on her service. The weapon that had started this entire sequence of events remained her constant companion, a reminder of the responsibilities and capabilities she carried. The decision she ultimately made would surprise some of the officers who had presented her with options. Sarah chose to remain in her current role for the remainder of her deployment, but accepted a position as a senior instructor at the Army Sniper School for her next assignment. Her reasoning was characteristically practical and mission-focused. She felt that she could have the greatest impact by training other snipers to achieve higher levels of effectiveness. The skills and insights she had developed through her exceptional service could be passed on to hundreds of future snipers, potentially saving thousands of lives over time. General Hayes was initially surprised by her decision to decline the special operations positions, but, as Sarah explained her reasoning, he began to understand the depth of her commitment to service above personal advancement. You realize that you're giving up opportunities that most soldiers would consider the pinnacle of military service, he pointed out. Yes, sir, Sarah replied. But I think I can do more good by helping others develop these capabilities than by keeping them to myself.
The general nodded slowly, recognizing the wisdom in her choice.
That attitude, specialist, is exactly why you've been so successful. You understand that individual excellence is meaningless unless it serves a larger purpose. As Sarah prepared for the final months of her deployment, she knew that her life would never be quite the same. The recognition of her extraordinary service had changed how others viewed her capabilities, but it had also reinforced her understanding of why those capabilities mattered. The quiet Sunday evening cleaning session that had started everything seemed like a lifetime ago, but the principles that had guided her then remained unchanged. Attention to detail, commitment to excellence, and dedication to protecting others would continue to define her service, regardless of where that service took her next. 6 months after that pivotal Sunday evening cleaning session, Sarah Martinez stood before her final formation at Forward Operating Base Titan. Her deployment was ending, and, with it, a chapter of service that had redefined what was possible for a military sniper. The soldiers assembled before her represented 3 years of shared missions, mutual protection, and bonds forged under the harsh realities of combat operations. Colonel Richardson addressed the formation, speaking about Sarah's contributions to their unit's success and the exceptional level of protection she had provided. He mentioned her confirmed kill count, which had reached 163 by the end of her deployment, but he focused more on the lives she had saved and the missions she had made possible. Specialist Martinez has set a standard of excellence that will be remembered long after she leaves the space, he told the assembled soldiers. Her dedication to mission accomplishment and the protection of her fellow soldiers represents the best of what we strive to achieve in military service. As Sarah listened to the colonel's words, she reflected on how much had changed since General Hayes first discovered her cleaning her rifle. The investigation into her service record had revealed not just exceptional numbers, but a level of operational impact that had influenced military thinking about sniper effectiveness and training. The award ceremony that followed was both humbling and overwhelming. Sarah received the Bronze Star Medal for her heroic achievement in combat operations, along with the Army Commendation Medal with Valor Device for her exceptional performance under fire. Each medal represented not just personal recognition, but acknowledgement of the critical role she had played in protecting her fellow soldiers. General Hayes, who had returned to the base specifically for her farewell ceremony, presented the awards personally. Specialist Martinez, he said as he pinned the Bronze Star to her uniform, "Your service has been nothing short of extraordinary. The standards you have set will influence military training and operations for years to come." The ceremony concluded with a surprise announcement that would ensure Sarah's legacy extended beyond her individual service. The sniper training facility at the base would be renamed in her honor, recognizing the impact her methods and achievements had on the development of sniper capabilities. As the formal ceremonies ended, Sarah found herself surrounded by soldiers who wanted to express their personal gratitude for her service. Many shared stories of missions where her overwatch had kept them safe, patrols where her precision had eliminated threats before they could act, and moments when her presence had made the difference between life and death. One young soldier approached her with a letter signed by the entire squad she had protected during a particularly dangerous mission. "We wanted you to know," he said, "that because of you, all of us are going home to our families. That means everything to us." These personal interactions reminded Sarah why she had chosen to serve and why the recognition she had received, while gratifying, was secondary to the real purpose of her work. The numbers and awards were meaningful, but the knowledge that her fellow soldiers were safe was what truly mattered. The transition from combat operations to her new role as a senior instructor at the Army Sniper School would be significant, but Sarah was excited about the opportunity to share her knowledge and experience with the next generation of snipers. The techniques she had developed, the insights she had gained, and the standards she had established could potentially influence hundreds of future snipers. During her final week at the base, Sarah spent considerable time documenting her methods and lessons learned. She created detailed training materials that covered everything from advanced ballistics calculations to mental preparation techniques. These materials would become part of the curriculum at Sniper School, ensuring that her knowledge would continue to benefit future soldiers. The Army had also commissioned a comprehensive study of her service record to identify the factors that had contributed to her exceptional effectiveness. Military researchers wanted to understand whether her success was due to unique natural abilities, specific training methods, or operational techniques that could be replicated in other snipers.
The study revealed that Sarah's success was the result of a combination of factors.
Her natural marksmanship ability was exceptional but not unprecedented. Her dedication to training and preparation was remarkable but achievable by others with sufficient motivation. What set her apart was the synthesis of these elements with an intuitive understanding of tactics and an obsessive attention to detail. These findings were encouraging because they suggested that while Sarah's level of achievement was rare, the methods and principles that contributed to her success could be taught to other snipers. The Army began incorporating her techniques into official training programs, potentially improving the effectiveness of snipers throughout the military. As Sarah prepared to leave Afghanistan, she took one final trip to the range where she had spent countless hours honing her skills. The targets at 800 meters that had once seemed challenging now felt routine. The wind patterns she had studied obsessively were as familiar as the landscape of her childhood home in Montana. She set up her .338 Lapua Magnum one last time at the base, taking a series of shots that served as both practice and farewell. Each round found its mark with the precision that had become her trademark. The rifle that had been her constant companion, the tool through which she had protected so many lives, would be retiring with her from combat operations. The weapon would accompany her to Fort Benning, where it would continue to serve in her new role as an instructor. Student snipers would learn from the same rifle that had achieved one of the highest confirmed kill counts in modern military history. The weapon would become both a teaching tool and a symbol of what was possible with dedication and skill. Sarah's departure from the base was marked by a level of ceremony typically reserved for much higher-ranking officers. Her fellow soldiers understood that they were witnessing the end of a historic deployment, one that had redefined what was possible for a military sniper. As her transport aircraft lifted off from the base for the final time, Sarah looked down at the landscape where she had spent 3 years of her life. The mountains and valleys held memories of missions that had tested her skills and resolve. The base below had been home to experiences that had shaped her understanding of duty, sacrifice, and service. The flight gave her time to reflect on the journey that had brought her to this point. She thought about the scared 19-year-old who had first enlisted, driven by a desire to serve her country but uncertain about her capabilities. She remembered the pride she felt when she graduated first in her class from sniper school, and the weight of responsibility she experienced during her first confirmed kill. Most importantly, she thought about the soldiers whose lives had been protected by her service. The confirmed kill count that had brought her recognition was ultimately meaningful only because each number represented a threat eliminated and American lives saved. Her new assignment at the Army Sniper School would allow her to multiply that impact exponentially. Every student she trained successfully could go on to save multiple lives through improved marksmanship and tactical skills. The knowledge and techniques she had developed through 3 years of combat operations would continue to benefit the military long after her own service ended. The legacy Sarah Martinez left at Forward Operating Base Titan extended far beyond her impressive statistics. She had demonstrated that exceptional performance was possible through dedication, preparation, and unwavering commitment to mission accomplishment. Her example inspired other soldiers to push the boundaries of their own capabilities and showed that individual excellence, when properly directed, could have strategic-level impact. As she began the journey to her new assignment, Sarah carried with her the responsibility of ensuring that her exceptional service would continue to benefit others. The quiet Sunday evening cleaning session that had first brought her to General Hayes' attention had set in motion a series of events that would influence military training and operations for years to come. The specialist who had simply been maintaining her weapon according to routine had become a legend whose methods would be studied and emulated by future generations of snipers. Her story would remind military leaders that exceptional capability could be found in unexpected places and that recognizing and nurturing such talent was essential for maintaining military effectiveness. Sarah's transition from combat sniper to instructor represented not an end, but a new beginning. Her greatest achievements might well lie ahead, measured not in her own confirmed kills, but in the lives saved by the snipers she would train and the standards of excellence she would establish for others to follow.